What's going on, everybody? I'm Primalliquid, and welcome to my review for Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles. Now, before we get started with anything, disclaimer, I did receive a copy of this game for free from Square Enix. I received both a Steam version and also a PlayStation 5 version. However, that is not going to impact this review whatsoever. It is still going to be entirely impartial. However, it obviously needs stating. Now, Final Fantasy Tactics is a remaster of basically a cult classic at this point. However, unfortunately, there are a ton of pros, but also quite a few cons. And we're going to go over everything to let you know basically if you should buy it or if you should wait for the price to lower. So, let's actually talk about one of the main things that is going to differentiate this review from other people. We're not going to talk about the story in this video. Why? Because the game is basically close to 30 years old at this point. That means those who have already played the story know full well what to expect. And for those who this is going to be their first iteration with Tactics, the story itself is going to be entirely new to them. So I'm actually going to leave the story out of this review, and we're just going to talk about performance, gameplay, sound, graphics, and both the enhanced version versus the classic version. So let's get into it, shall we? Now, as soon as you actually start up Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles, this is the screen that you will actually be greeted with. You have to choose whether you want to play the enhanced version or the classic version. Now, some people might think it's good having both on here. However, unfortunately, as you're about to see, the classic version suffers quite a few problems on modern hardware. The main one that I personally found is the text is actually really difficult to read. I know it's supposed to be an original experience, but still, I do wish they at least actually changed the text a little bit just to make it slightly more readable. Likewise, it still suffers from the typical slow fights that it used to. Obviously, the game is old, and I know it's meant to be a classic experience, but I do wish they added a couple quality of life improvements. But anyway, enough about the classic version. We're all here to actually talk about the enhanced version, as this is probably going to be what most people play, simply due to the fact, in my opinion, it is just leagues, and I do mean leagues ahead of the actual classic iteration. So, when you are actually in game, okay, there are a bunch of benefits and, unfortunately, a bunch of cons. Now, what you are watching here, okay, is this is all going to be PC gameplay. Why? Even though I have the PS5 version and also the PC version, believe it or not, there's actually almost no differences between the two. I've noticed no differences when it comes to actual frame rates, graphic fidelity, or anything like that. They both play pretty much fundamentally identical, which is obviously really, really great. Likewise, I've experienced no real slowdowns on either version, except in one particular instance. Now, old Tactics players will be very familiar with the actual grinding using fundamentals or metal, basically just spamming Squire abilities over and over and over to basically level up all of your jobs and your actual characters. Now, after a while of doing this, the game does get a little bit of a slowdown if your JP is at 9,999, essentially where you can't earn any more. It seems to be a little bit of a leak. However, I've not actually tried this on the PlayStation version of the game. I've only got to this point on the PC version, so I'm unsure if the PlayStation version will have the same slowdown. However, one other con, okay, and this is exclusive to the PC version that I have found, there is a game-breaking crash, okay? Now, when I say a game-breaking crash, I mean quite literally a game-breaking crash, and it happens in a very triggerable way. And what I'm doing right now is actually one of the triggers. So basically, you will definitely crash if you go AFK. I know, it is incredibly weird. Now, I have reached out to Square about this, and I've let them know about the bug, how reproducible it is, and well, my contact has basically passed that off to, like, the dev team, so hopefully that will end up getting fixed. However, yes, do not go AFK, or you will end up crashing. Now, it's not the end-all be-all, though, because the game actually offers quite a lot of autosaves and a lot of manual save slots as well. Now, the game autosaves basically at every little instance that you actually do, which is obviously really good. Now, if the game does crash, where you are basically AFK doing something or you're in the middle of a fight, don't worry too much, okay? Simply due to the fact that when you load your save back up, by hitting continue, the game will actually remember that you were in a fight and it will load you back in. So you won't actually lose any progress most of the time. I have had it happen to me once where the game did not remember my actual progress and it basically just booted me out, kind of. So do be warned about that. However, let's talk about some of the pros, shall we? Namely, what you're seeing now in the bottom right, the fast forward ability. This is a godsend. If you look at how fast, the game is actually running right now, this is an insane quality of life improvement over the original. Now, I actually played the original up to, I want to say, somewhere in Chapter 2 previously on stream. That was as far as I originally got on my first playthrough. However, now it is definitely a much smoother experience for sure. It is definitely a lot more enjoyable as well, having that little option. The downside to this, unfortunately, is even though there is a speed up now, you have to hold the button, unfortunately. So for me on controller, it is holding R1, which wouldn't normally be too bad. However, unfortunately, it does actually start to hurt your fingers a little bit after a bit of time. Now, this is a really easy fix, and I'm honestly amazed they didn't actually incorporate it. But why not just have the speed up, the fast forward option as a toggle? I really don't know why they didn't do this to begin with. But yeah, there is no toggle. If you want the fast forward, you do unfortunately have to hold the button in. And of course, as the game goes on and on and on, if you play this for a couple hundred hours, your R1 button is going to be held in quite a lot, which of course can slightly affect controller performance. But more than that, I'm more worried for your finger than anything, as after extended play sessions, your finger does start to get quite sore from holding the speed up. However, another pro is, as you can see from the actual gameplay, the visuals are much better. They are infinitely better than the classic. First of all, we have a lot more information on the character portrait. It is a lot easier to read than the original as well. Same with the menus. Even though it's basically the same, it has a much cleaner layout, and if you actually look at the skills on the right-hand side, something the original never did, it actually tells you what the skill does, okay? Now, obviously, some of the translations are slightly different, yeah? But fundamentally, it's basically the same, only now we have more information, which is definitely a huge benefit in my opinion. Now, obviously, we can't have pros without any more cons. So one of the biggest cons that I think a lot of people are aware of, unfortunately, is the no War of the Lions content. So we do, unfortunately, have no War of the Lions content. This means, especially job-wise, we do not have the Onion Knight and we do not have the Dark Knight. Considering it's an enhanced version, I do think it's really weird that they didn't include that. And unfortunately, I would much rather they get rid of the classic version and have spent that little bit of extra time just polishing the enhanced version a little bit more, adding the War of the Lions content, and just slightly tweaking some of the quality of life options, which we will get to momentarily. But that's my opinion. I know some people are going to be happy with the classic version being there. Me personally, I'd rather they spent the time just on enhanced. Now, let's go back to another quality of life feature, shall we? So we've already gone over the more battle information, the speed up battles, and of course the massively updated visuals. One of the other things that I think a lot of tactics players will really enjoy is this option right here in the settings. Quick removal of creatures and eggs. So we're going to turn that on right now, and then we're just going to quickly spawn a bunch of, just a bunch of eggs really quick. And obviously this is also technically a improvement over the classic version, as you do not have to fight random battles. You can literally just flee from every single one of them, meaning you can only actually get away with just doing the actual story encounters, which is a huge godsend in my opinion. All right, so we've just spawned a boatload of chocobos. So now let's actually just get rid of them, shall we? So we're just going to highlight and we're just going to release. Yes, it is honestly that quick, which is an insane quality of life improvement over the classical version. You can get rid of eggs and monsters just so fast with this. It is crazy good, and this is going to be a major improvement for the actual like hardcore players and so on and so forth. Speaking of improvements for the more hardcore players, let's talk about jobs. So obviously jobs, some people might be a little confused about what unlocks what. Well, the good news is if you just press square when highlighting a character's jobs, it will show you exactly what you need to unlock each job. For example, arithmetician. This shows that we need a level 5 black mage, a level 5 white mage, a level 4 mystic, and a level 4 time mage. Once we have all of them, we unlock the arithmetician. Likewise, if we want to unlock mime, that shows that we need a level 8 squire, a level 8 chemist, a level 8 geomancer, I believe that is. Yep, we need a level 5 dragoon, and of course we need a level 5 orator and a level 5 summoner. So it makes unlocking jobs much easier than in the original as well. That is a very nice quality of life improvement in my opinion. Likewise, it's just really nice to see everything that you have right there. And if we go over to a character like this one right here, now obviously I do not have the mime unlocked, okay, on this character. So if I hit the mime right there, it brings up a level requirement with all my required levels and my current levels for those classes, which is also a nice quality of life improvement. So straight off the bat, this is definitely a much more preferable way to play the game over the original. I know there's going to be some diehards out there who will prefer the classic version. Me personally, I will never ever touch the classic mode again, basically. I did it a little bit for the footage for this review. Outside of that, I'm never going to do it because I'm just going to stay on the enhanced, simply due to, one, the upgraded visual style, and two, the just miles ahead benefits of the quality of life improvements. Now, obviously, we've talked about the graphical fidelity. In terms of combat, you've already seen that it is massively faster and massively improved visually as well. So let's actually do a little bit of sound, shall we? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play a cutscene from the very start of the game, just so you guys can actually hear what it actually sounds like. So let's return to title screen really quickly. It's like, it doesn't matter if I lose any progress there, it doesn't matter. Right, let's go ahead and start a new game. Also, I should reiterate, your saves between the enhanced version and the classical version do not transfer, okay? So what that means is all these saves I have on the enhanced version, you cannot use these on the classical mode. So if you want to play classical, that is an entirely new save in and of itself for its own version. Essentially, we have two different games with one launcher here. That is essentially the breakdown. Anyway, let's go listen to the voice acting, which honestly is actually pretty good. Also, there is the difficulty option as well now in Tactics. Okay, so if we do a new game here, Right, so we have 3 difficulties, which are new compared to the classic. You have Squire, which is essentially an easy mode. You have Knight, which is basically a medium mode. And you have Tactician, which is basically a hard mode. So if you are a fan of FF Tactics, you can play on Tactician. If you're entirely new to the series, I would suggest either starting on Knight or Squire, just until you actually come to terms with job unlocks, gear, and so on and so forth, just because random battles can be incredibly difficult, okay? Random battles in this game are a lot harder than the actual story battles, so do keep that in mind. So let's just choose a random birthday, because why not? Now, one thing to note in Tactics is the birthday is kind of important for a few different things, but I'm going to leave that for you to figure out because, hey, that's what the fun in games is, right? Okay, so I'm going to shut up now and let you guys listen to the actual talking dialogue, although we are going to skip this little bit right here to get to the actual characters talking. Right, here we go. Also, auto proceed text, guys. It is amazing.
Children of Ivalice, but deliver us from our sins, that we might know salvation.
Lady Ophelia, it is time.
I'll not be much longer, Agrius.
Your escort has already arrived.
Please, heed the good lady's words, Highness. You must hurry.
Still in here, are you? It's been the better part of an hour.
Gafgarian, you forget yourself, sir. You are in the presence of the princess.
Mayhap bowed heads would less offend. But you would do well to waste less time on idle pleasantries.
I see even the noble Order of the Northern Sky cannot rid itself of vulgar knaves.
A guard captain in these rain-sodden hinterlands ought not to expect chivalry. We are in the employ of the Order, not of it. Our pay does not cover trite courtesies to the likes of you.
Govern your tongue.
Enough. Let us be on our way.
And there you go. There's a little taste of the audio levels as well. Honestly, the voice acting is actually pretty spot on, to be honest. Like, it was actually letting me get much more into the story as I originally expected I would be. Obviously, Tactics is known as an incredible story, but I am a little biased against the Ivalice world as a whole. However, going through the chapters, I was actually finding myself rather drawn, and I think a large part of that was the addition of voice acting. I was definitely connecting with characters a little bit more than if I was just actually reading the text. However, we've now gone over some of the pros, all the quality of life improvements, the visuals, the voice acting, the speed. We've gone over the cons, such as how the speed up works, how damaging it can be to your finger, which, yes, it really can be. Trust me on that. That really needs to be updated and turned into a toggle for some reason. I'm not sure why it's not. And of course, one of the biggest cons, which I didn't actually mention, that's my mistake, is the in-battle camera. I think the in-battle camera needs a little bit of tweaking, maybe a little bit more overhead, which would be really ideal, and a little bit more zoomed out, just allowing for easier movement, as the current preset camera controls kind of lacking. But obviously Square, they don't really do tacticals like this all that often. I would definitely have preferred something like a Disgaea camera system, which unfortunately it doesn't quite measure up to, but it's still definitely playable. And of course, then we also have the PC crash. So definitely a major issue right there. Hopefully they will fix that, but we will have to see. Now, in terms of what I rate this game, okay, it is most definitely not a 10 out of 10. Nothing is a 10 out of 10. Nothing is perfect. There can always be improvements in something. I am going to give the classical mode, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10, honestly. And the reason it's so low is because of the enhanced mode. Now, I have tried the original Tactics previously on stream. I was not a huge fan because of quite a few problems with it. The enhanced version has allowed me to change my perspective on the game entirely, which is actually pretty freaking crazy when you consider that. Now, I'm actually going to rate this a 7, okay? Why 7? Well, graphically, the game looks amazing. Audio-wise, the game sounds amazing. And I do like the additional improvements to the visual UI and the in-battle menu, as well as just the general speed up, and including the fast forward option. However, there do need to be a couple of improvements. Firstly, the fast forward option, in my opinion, should be a toggle. It should not be a button held, it should be a toggle. Then there needs to be a speed up during the actual selecting of your units and the stage starting, as that is not affected by the speed up and it's a little bit slow in my opinion. Likewise, okay, and this I think is going to be where some people will probably mostly agree, we really needed the War of the Lions content here. Now this is basically like the Pixel remasters where unfortunately, once again, we did not get any of the additional content that the games actually have had over the years. It kind of boggles the mind that they used the original tactics instead of War of the Lions, especially if they lost the source code like they claim. So if they were going to rebuild a game from scratch up, why choose the inferior product? Are they going to release it as DLC at some point? I don't know. Are they opening up for a future release? Maybe, probably. They're a company, they're here to make money after all, so yeah, why wouldn't they? But at the same time, it is a bit unfair to the actual player base. Other than that, though, visually, the game is good. There are some problems, mostly in the quality of life aspect, and of course, the PC version really desperately needs that AFK crash fixing, because that is crazily reproducible, and it's also going to affect quite a lot of people. Let me ask you this, how many times have you been playing games and then you've just left the game on while you go and grab some food or something like that, or maybe you need to quickly run the shop? You're going to leave the game on, aren't you? If you do that, when you come back, the game will have crashed and closed. Now, this is so easily reproducible that before I actually emailed my contact at Square, I did actually go ahead and test this 6 times. Oops, that's 5. That's 6. I did test this 6 times. Every single time, the game crashed and closed. So it is incredibly, incredibly easily reproducible. I'm actually amazed that their quality testers did not find it, or they did, and they're planning on fixing it as an update. I don't know. I'm basically waiting to hear off any news from my Square rep. But yeah, 7 out of 10 is my score. Is it worth the purchase? Honestly, I think so, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, fans of tactics are definitely going to enjoy all of the quality of life improvements. That is hands down going to be the case. What they're not going to like is no War of the Lions content. As for newcomers to the series, it makes this an easy entry into actually playing the tactics game, as before this, your only really option was, I think they released it on mobile a few years back, or a PSP, pretty much. Or no, I think actually it's on the Game Boy Advance as well. And obviously the original tactics was PS1. So this is now a modern port of a game that is incredibly, incredibly old, allowing more and more players to actually get into the game. In terms of actual price point, I think I'd be prepared to pay maybe £40 to £50 for it. If it went over that, then I would definitely not be picking it up, because at that point, I think it's a little too much for what is essentially just a remaster. Yes, it's an enhanced version, but again, there's not really enough to warrant like a £60 price tag. You know what I mean? At least that's my opinion anyway. Now, if you've never played the tactics games, I do think this is a nice entry point for sure. I'm personally enjoying it. When my time on the War of the Lions on the PSP version, I wasn't actually a fan of. I stopped playing early on in Chapter 2, back when I was doing my streams for that. Whereas now, I'm actually really enjoying my time on it. It is actually a fun and semi-addicting game, in all honesty. But I'm going to leave the rest up to you guys. Let me know what you think about everything I've said, and of course, everything that you have seen. Also, just remember, everything I've said in this video is my opinion only. You can agree, you can disagree. You can agree with parts and disagree with other parts. That doesn't make me wrong and it doesn't make you wrong. It simply means we have differing opinions on things. And of course, don't take my word for it. Go and look at other reviews as well, just so you can build a bigger picture. But though, everybody, that is going to be it for this video. I really hope you've enjoyed. And of course, if you want to see even more tactics guides coming soon, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I've got so much planned. It is crazy. Likewise, at the very top of this video description, there will be a playlist as well. You'll be able to find all my tactics videos in there when the game officially releases. With that said, though, everybody, thank you so very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.